There's a guy who worked 43 years as an electrician, retires at 62, takes Social Security early because he's tired and his knees are shot, gets a check for $1,400 a month, feels pretty good about it. Then his buddy calls him up, says, hey, I need help on a small job, couple weeks of work, pays $8 grand. Easy money, right? He does it. Next year, Social Security sends him a letter. They want $4,000 back. He calls them, confused. They say, you earned too much. You violated Rule 6. He says, what the hell is Rule 6? They say, you should have read the handbook. It's 240 pages long. Now pay us back, or we'll garnish your future checks. He asks his buddy for a loan to pay Social Security back the Social Security money they already gave him. His buddy laughs and says, welcome to the reverse slot machine. Or, here's another one. Woman retires at 63, decides to do some consulting work, makes $30,000 that year. Social Security takes back $7,300 of her benefits. She nets $22,700. If she'd just not worked and collected her full benefit of $18,000, she'd have been better off by $4,300. The system literally punished her for being productive. The incentive structure is backwards. Or this guy takes Social Security at 62, starts a small side business detailing cars, makes $28,000, loses $9,200 in benefits. Didn't know about the rule until the letter came. Now he's trying to figure out if he should just shut down the business or wait 4 more years until he hits full retirement age when the rule magically disappears. What's happening here? I'm going to explain exactly how Social Security Rule 6 works, why it exists, and why the government is secretly betting you'll either never learn about it or learn about it way too late. And I'm going to show you the psychological trap built into the system that keeps this machine running. By the way, I built a free early retirement calculator because most online ones are mathematically wrong. It uses BlackRock and Vanguard logic to expose the weak points in your plan, and I only ask for your email to send the report so I don't store any of your financial data. Link in the description. Here's the central concept. I call it the reverse slot machine. In a normal slot machine, you put money in, pull the lever, and maybe you get more money out. In Social Security with Rule 6, you've already won the jackpot by qualifying for benefits. The money's supposed to be yours. But then, if you pull the work lever before full retirement age, the house takes some of it back. The more you work, the more they take. It's a slot machine where winning too much makes you lose. Let me explain the basic mechanic first. You can start taking Social Security as early as 62. Full retirement age for most people now is 67. If you take it early, your monthly benefit is permanently reduced. Let's say your full retirement age benefit would be $2,000 a month. If you take it at 62, you only get 70%, so $1,400 a month. That reduction is forever. Even when you turn 85, you're still only getting 70% of what you would have gotten. Now here's where Rule 6 kicks in. If you're collecting Social Security before full retirement age and you earn money from work, the Social Security Administration has an earnings test. In 2025, the limit was $23,400. In 2026, it's slightly higher. Let's call it around $23,800. If you earn more than that from work, Social Security starts clawing back your benefits. The formula is brutal. For every $2 you earn above the limit, they take back $1 of your Social Security. So you're at the reverse slot machine. You've already accepted the permanent 70% penalty by taking benefits early. Now you work a little bit, earn $30,000. You're $8,200 over the limit. Social Security takes back half of that, $4,100. They just withhold it from your monthly checks. You thought you were getting both your work income and your Social Security. Nope, you got punished for working. Here's what makes this interesting. The year you reach full retirement age, the rule changes. The earnings limit jumps way up. In 2025, it was $62,160. And the penalty gets softer. Now it's $1 clawed back for every $3 over the limit instead of 1 for every 2. Then, the month you actually hit full retirement age, the rule completely disappears. You can earn $10 million a year, and Social Security won't touch a dime of your benefits. Think about that structure for a second. The rule only applies during the window when you're most likely to need extra income. You retired early, you're in your early 60s, Maybe you underestimated your expenses. Maybe inflation hit harder than you thought. Maybe you just want to stay active. The system says, okay, you can work, but we're taking half your extra earnings back through this hidden tax. Now, you might be thinking, well, this is just to prevent people from gaming the system, right? Taking benefits early while still working full-time? Sure, that's the official justification. But here's where the incentive analysis gets weird. The earnings test only applies to wage income or self-employment income. It does not apply to investment income. You can have $500,000 in dividend-paying stocks, throwing off $30,000 a year in passive income, and Social Security doesn't care. You keep your full benefit. But if you make $30,000 doing actual work, they penalize you. The system is literally designed to reward capital over labor. If you're rich enough to live off investments, you're fine. If you need to work because you didn't accumulate enough assets, you get punished. It's a regressive feature dressed up as an anti-fraud measure. Here's the second layer. Those earnings thresholds, the $23,400 or $62,160, they barely keep up with inflation. Back in 2000, the lower threshold was $10,080. If it had kept pace with real wage growth, it should be closer to $35,000 today. But it's not. It's $23,800, which means every year, inflation pushes more people over the threshold without them getting any real raise in purchasing power. The reverse slot machine gets hungrier over time. Let me walk you through a real scenario to make this concrete. Meet Greg. He's 63. He was a middle manager at a logistics company, got laid off during a restructuring, found a new job pretty quick because he's good at what he does, but it pays $45,000 a year instead of his old $70,000. He'd already started Social Security at 62 because he needed the income during the job search. His benefit is $1,600 a month, which is $19,200 a year. Here's his math. He earns $45,000 at his new job. The earnings limit is $23,800. He's over by $21,200. Social Security claws back half of that, $10,600. His annual Social Security benefit was $19,200. So they withhold $10,600, which means he only actually receives $8,600 in Social Security that year. Greg's total income, $45,000 from work plus $8,600 from Social Security, equals $53,600. But if Greg had just not taken Social Security early and waited until full retirement age, or if he'd known about this rule and delayed claiming, he could have avoided the whole mess. Instead, he's locked into a permanently reduced benefit and getting clawed back every year until he hits 67. Now here's the part where the psychology gets dark. The Social Security Administration doesn't advertise this rule. It's in the handbook. It's on the website if you go looking. But when you apply for early benefits, there's no giant red warning that says, hey, if you earn more than $23,800, we're going to take money back. You have to know to ask. And most people don't. They find out when they get the letter, or worse, when they notice their checks are smaller than expected and they call in confused. The system is designed around inertia and information asymmetry. If you don't read the 240-page handbook, if you don't independently research the earnings test, the default behavior is to get penalized. The reverse slot machine keeps spinning and the house keeps winning. There's an analogy here to how casinos position their games. The games with the worst odds for the player, like slot machines, are front and center, brightly lit, easy to understand. The games with better odds, like blackjack with perfect basic strategy, require knowledge and are tucked in the back. Social Security is similar. The easy path, take benefits as early as possible, feels intuitive and is heavily trafficked. The optimal path, delay if you can, and definitely don't trigger the earnings test, requires research and discipline. Here's where it gets really interesting. What happens to that money Social Security claws back? You'd think it's just gone, right? Penalty for breaking the rule? Not exactly. This is the twist. When you reach full retirement age, Social Security is supposed to recalculate your benefit to give you credit for the months they withheld payments. It's like they're saying, okay, we took money back from you, but we're going to treat those months as if you hadn't claimed yet, so your permanent benefit will be slightly higher going forward. Sounds fair? Here's the problem. The recalculation is complex, not well explained, and many people don't even realize it happens. More importantly, Whether you come out ahead depends entirely on how long you live. If you hit full retirement age and then die at 70, you probably didn't recoup what they clawed back. If you live to 90, maybe you come out ahead. But the government is playing an actuarial game. They know the average lifespan. They know most people won't fully recover the withheld amounts. The reverse slot machine is tilted in the house's favor over the long run. There's also a compliance angle here. I've run my own business for over a decade. I've been around accountants and fiscal lawyers who actually understand how these systems work. One of them told me a story about a client who got hit with a $22,000 overpayment notice from Social Security. The guy had taken benefits at 62, started a small consulting business, made decent money, never reported his earnings to Social Security because he didn't know he was supposed to. 3 years later, SSA catches up, does the math, and says you owe us $22,000. Now pay up or we'll garnish your checks going forward. The guy had already spent that money. He thought it was his. Now he's on a payment plan, essentially paying back his own retirement benefits. The information asymmetry is the weapon. Social Security has all your wage data from the IRS. They know exactly what you earned. But they let you collect the full benefit for a year or two. Then they come back and demand repayment. If they wanted to prevent overpayment, they could withhold in real time. But they don't. They let the debt accumulate. Why? Because now you owe them money, and that debt gives them leverage. They can garnish future benefits. They can charge interest. They can make your life difficult until you settle up. The reverse slot machine doesn't just take your coins, it loans them back to you and charges you for the privilege. Let's talk about the historical context, because that's where the incentives become really clear. Social Security was never designed to be claimed early while you're still working. The original retirement age was 65, and life expectancy was lower. The idea was you work until you physically can't, then you claim benefits and coast for a few years until you die. That was a social contract. But in 1961, they added the option to claim as early as 62 with a reduced benefit. And they added the earnings test to discourage people from double dipping, claiming benefits while still earning a full salary. But the economy changed. Jobs got less physical, people lived longer, retirement became more expensive, and suddenly claiming at 62 while doing some part-time work became a rational strategy for a lot of people. The rule didn't adapt. It just became a trap. The government's incentive is to pay out as little as possible for as long as possible. The earnings test accomplishes that. It discourages early claiming if you plan to work. And if you do claim early and work, it claws money back. Either way, the government pays less. There's a similar dynamic in corporate benefits. I've seen companies offer early retirement packages with pension bridges, but the fine print says if you get a new job making over a certain amount, the bridge disappears. The company is betting most people won't read the fine print, will take the package, will get a new job, and will lose the bridge. The company saves money. The employee feels tricked. It's the same game. Now, you might think, okay, but once you know about Rule 6, you can just plan around it, right? Sure. But here's the psychological trap: loss aversion. Behavioral economics tells us people feel the pain of losing something roughly twice as intensely as the pleasure of gaining the same thing. If you've already started receiving Social Security checks, even if you know about the earnings test, the idea of your checks shrinking or stopping feels like a loss. It's painful. It's demotivating. So what do people do? They either stop working entirely, leaving potential income on the table, or they work under the table, which is illegal but avoids the clawback. The rule creates a perverse incentive to either be unproductive or commit fraud. I've talked to guys in their early 60s who took Social Security at 62, then got a job offer that would have paid $50,000 a year. They turned it down because after the earnings test clawback, it wasn't worth it. They'd rather collect their reduced Social Security and do nothing than work and get penalized. The system trained them to be less productive. That's not a bug. That's a feature. The fewer people who work and trigger the clawback, the fewer people Social Security has to recalculate benefits for later. Administrative simplicity at the cost of economic productivity. Here's another angle. The rule is asymmetric in who it affects. High earners who retire early are typically sitting on enough assets that they don't need to work. They're fine. Low earners who retire early often need to work to make ends meet, and they're the ones getting hit by the earnings test. It's a poverty trap, disguised as a rule, The reverse slot machine is positioned in the poor neighborhood, not the country club. Let me give you one more quick example, because this is where the absurdity peaks. There's a woman who took Social Security at 63. She's a freelance writer. She had a good year, made $32,000. She was over the earnings limit by about $8,200. Social Security clawed back $4,100. But here's the thing. As a freelancer, she also had to pay self-employment tax on that $32,000, which is 15.3%. So she paid about $4,900 in self-employment tax to fund Social Security and Medicare. Then Social Security turned around and took $4,100 of her benefits back. She paid into the system and got penalized by the system in the same year. She literally paid Social Security to punish her. At this point, you're asking yourself, is there any logic to this? Or is it just bureaucratic cruelty? The answer is both. The logic is fiscal. Social Security is running a deficit. The trust fund is projected to run out in the early 2030s, depending on whose math you believe. Every dollar they don't pay out today is a dollar they can use to extend the fund's life. The earnings test is a hidden austerity measure. It reduces payouts without technically cutting benefits. Politically, it's genius. You can't campaign against a rule most people don't know exists. And that brings me to the final layer of this. The rule might not even survive. There have been multiple attempts in Congress to repeal the earnings test entirely. It almost happened in the 90s. It keeps getting proposed and shot down. Why? Because repealing it would cost the Social Security Trust Fund billions of dollars a year. So the rule stays, quietly clawing back benefits from people who need them most, while politicians argue about the big headline issues like raising the retirement age or means testing. The system wants you to not know about Rule 6 until it's too late. It wants you to claim early, go back to work, earn too much, get clawed back, and then just accept it as a bureaucratic inconvenience instead of the structured disincentive it actually is. The reverse slot machine only works if people keep pulling the lever without understanding the odds. So here's what you do. First, if you're even thinking about claiming Social Security before full retirement age, which is 67 for most people, and you plan to work at all, run the math on the earnings test. Figure out if you'll exceed the threshold. If you will, delay claiming. The reduced benefit plus the clawback is almost never worth it unless you have a very specific short-term cash need. Second, if you've already claimed and you're working, track your earnings obsessively. The moment you see you're going to exceed the threshold, stop working, defer income, do whatever you can to stay under, because the clawback is a 50% marginal tax on top of your regular income tax and payroll tax. You could be looking at a 70 or 80% total marginal rate. That's insane. Third, if you do trigger the clawback, document everything. When you hit full retirement age, Social Security is supposed to recalculate your benefit, but mistakes happen. If you don't have records, you can't fight it. The reverse slot machine is real. It's in the tax code. It's enforced by the Social Security Administration, and it's counting on you to not read the handbook. Now you know. Lazy investing built more fortune than crypto memes. The same applies here. Lazy ignorance about Social Security rules will cost you more than any market crash. The house always wins unless you stop playing the rigged game.